Hey guys, Zomfox here, and today it is time to do the Week 3 game picks for the 2024 United Football League season. Through 2 weeks, we have been off to a pretty hot start in terms of these games, whether it be picking the scores almost perfectly, just, less than 5 points off, or whether it be just doing overall solid in betting picks. So without further ado, let's get into this huge matchup, as this is the first week of the 2024 season where it is just straight conference games. USFL versus USFL, XFL versus XFL. So the first games are the Saturday games, with the first one being the DC Defenders at Arlington on 1 p.m. April 13th. This one is honestly probably the least anticipated of all the games. The fact is these are almost unarguably two of the three worst teams in the league. You could make a case the Renegades are not in the bottom three, but they are 0-2. It may be because of just a couple plays, but they're still not really the best. And the DC Defenders, while some DC fans are trying to kind of cope their way into being good, at the end of the day, you beat a really bad Roughnecks team barely, and you didn't even, and you did kind of choke against the Brahmas, or one of your players did. But the bottom line is this is definitely the least anticipated game of all of them, but it is going to probably be a close one. Now, yes, the favorite is the Renegades by just a -1, and then the over-under of 43, and then the money line has the Renegades -108 versus the Defenders 112. So, very, very close one, but I don't know. This is a tough one to call. Look, the fact is the Renegades did just sign Henry St. Amour, but he's not going to be active till probably next week. And that was a huge signing and definitely probably the biggest signing during the free agency or during the season. But again, it's probably not going to be a factor until next week because of, the whole inactive practice and all that. But the Renegades, when I look at them and I say through 2 weeks, they still show that they can be a championship caliber team. Now, some people may scoff at that, but those people are basically box score watchers. The fact is they were a Deion Kane touchdown away from probably beating the Stallions. That play basically just killed off all the momentum and is what led to them getting beat at halftime or beat in the second half. And then against the Battlehawks, they were basically one missed field goal or, letting the Battlehawks score a TD away from potentially winning that game. They looked a lot better than the record suggests, which is why I do think they're going to get the W here. And I don't really think it's going to be that close. I do think it'll barely be a one-score game at 27-20, and I do think it's going to hit the over. The fact is the DC defense is still something I'm not a fan of. You let Reed Sinnett basically dice you for a while during that game, despite the fact that was his first time, playing spring football since, that 1 week he had last year. So the fact that you let that happen and the Roughnecks didn't even have Mark Thompson, they let Chase Garbers dice him out, even though, a touchdown was from that Alex Millette play, but they still let Chase Garbers do a lot of damage. And considering that Luis Perez is by a country mile the best quarterback they have gone against so far this season, yeah, that's not a good look for the Defenders. I do think the Defenders' offense is able to put up a decent amount of points. The fact is this is a Renegades defense that has not looked good at all. That's the whole reason why they signed Henry St. Amour, because of how bad their defense has looked. So I do think this is going to be over. I do think the Renegades win. I think that it's not really the home field advantage. It's just that they have been the better team through 2 weeks. And it just, everything culminates to them getting this W. Luis Perez probably gets the W, and they win the rematch of the XFL championship game, which, who'd have thought the rematch of the XFL championship game would be the matchup that's just the least, cared about in this weekend. Now, the next one is going to be the Showboats versus Stallions at 7 p.m. This is a big one. This is, the Case Cookers versus the Birmingham Stallions. -7's crazy. I mean, the Stallions are -7 on the spread. And then the over-under is 40.5, and then the money line is -310 for the Stallions, plus 250 for the Showboats. When your over-under is 40.5 and you're saying a team is favored by 7, that's basically saying you think it's going to end 20-10. That's crazy. Look, this is one of those that very much could become a sucker bet. Last week, it was the Panthers Stallions was a 6.5, 5.5 points spread when I made my betting picks, and I ended up losing it by half a point. So, this is one of those which could very well become or be called a sucker's bet. For those of you who don't know what sucker bets are, essentially it is when you put a spread that is insanely high, and you think, oh, surely there's no way the team's going to cover, and then they cover. But I'll be honest, I don't think this is a sucker's bet. I think this is an anti-sucker's bet. I think people are going to look at this, think it's a sucker bet, and take the Stallions. I think the Showboats keep this close, but they lose. I think this is going to be another over. I think this is 30-27. Why do I think it's going to be a high-scoring game? Like I said, I think the Showboats needed a couple weeks to start gelling. They have shown flashes of their team being really good. And as we talked about last week, both of these teams were just a bunch of red zone stops away from putting up over 30 points. Right? I mean, both these teams got stopped at least 4 times in the red zone. If they convert just 3 of those chances, you're talking about going from 3-point field goals to 6-point touchdowns. So already right there, that's an extra 9 points just on 3 different, touchdowns. And then you get the extra point. I mean, come on. 30-27 is not that far-fetched. I think that both these defenses, I think the Stallions defense is a really strong unit, but the fact is they did play the Panthers. It's not like they played a dominant Panthers, offense. And the Renegades were able to do some damage in the first half. I think that the Stallions defense does lay off the gas a bit in this game and just kind of get beat by the fact they're going against Case Cookus, who is one of the best quarterbacks in spring football. And again, I think this team is going to start, seeing how to gel better. Darius Victor still didn't look incredible last week, but he looked a hell of a lot better than he did in week 1. So if they're able to continue this gelling where you're getting all this, offensive talent to get some cohesion, it's going to be a really good showing. But the Stallions are still the Stallions. Yes, they have the issue at quarterback where they've been kind of mid, but not even mid, they've been pretty bad. But the point is that the Stallions are still the team to beat. There's no reason to ever say they're going to lose until they do lose. So I think they do win this game, but I do think it's going to be a lot closer than what people expect. So I think that it's going to be the over. I think it's going to end 30-27. Show let's cover. Now Sunday we get to the other game that is not really that big a deal, but still is bigger than the other one in my opinion, and that's the Roughnecks versus Panthers. This is because all signs are pointing to Mark Thompson playing. The official report has not come out yet about who is actually healthy, who's playing, and all that. But all signs point to Mark Thompson playing. The fact is he just posted on Twitter something about I'll be back or something like that. So all signs are pointing to him playing. But he has not really practiced all that much at all. He basically has been a DNP throughout the entire season. He may have, actually, practiced today or something or tomorrow. But he's going to be coming off a lot of rust. And the fact is that even though last year, whenever he came back, the Gamblers flipped the switch and went on a win streak, I don't really see that happening this time with the Roughnecks. Look, Marcus still is, if he's able to come back like he did last year, he's easily the best running back in the league now that Abram Smith is out. But if you watched the UFL last year, there was a lot of Breakers fans that wanted you to say that Wes Hills was the best running back in the league. So you have that battle between Wes and Mark Thompson. But the real big battle is Frank Gidna versus Reuben Foster. I would say this is your early DPOY race right here, is those two guys. Whichever team/player plays better/wins, they're going to be the front runner for the DPOY. They just are. Because, Frank Gidna was insanely underrated in year 1, got the flowers he deserved in year 2, but then Reuben Foster went from being the second guy in Pittsburgh behind Tizzino to now being the star in Houston. This is going to be a good matchup for them. But again, it's that question of, is Mark Thompson's return going to be enough to get the Roughnecks the W? The Panthers are -2. The spread is definitely going to change once this video gets posted if Mark Thompson's announced that he's going to play. Over under 38, not a shock at all. These two teams have not shown really anything on offense. -148 for the Panthers versus +124 for the Roughnecks. Is Reed Sinnett going to play as good as he looked last week? I don't think so. I think the Panthers win this game 18-15. I think this is going to be a very close game and a low-scoring game. Again, this is another one of those. Neither of these teams have shown the ability to really put up a bunch of points. Why should I start saying they're going to do that now? Especially going against basically the two best defenses in the league are going against each other in this game. And you could very well make the case, granted, saying Mark does not come back 100% yet, the two worst offenses in the league are going against each other. 18-15 is probably maybe even a bit high, but at the same time, I wouldn't be shocked if both teams score a defensive TD or something. But I do think the Panthers win, they cover, and I think it's going to be an under. The fact is, when I look at this, it's just hard to see that Mark is going to come back and have 150 yards in the ground. And it's also hard to say that Reed Sinnett's going to be, a monster. Because again, the Defenders' defense, like I said back after week 1, I said it looked very disappointing from what I expected it to be this year. And that has not changed at all. Whereas the Panthers' defenses continue to look really good. Yes, the Stallions were able to get some drives going, but when they got to the red zone, they got stopped. And I just don't see how the Roughnecks win this game. If they do, it's because Mark comes back and plays just like he did last year when he came back, which is snap, he's elite. If he's able to come back and play like that, the Roughnecks can win this game. But I think the Panthers just overall are the better team. I would not be shocked if Etling is announced the starter, though I doubt it. EJ is probably going to be announced as a starter. Again, they post, the depth charts, the official depth charts, 2 days before the games. So it's not going to come out till tomorrow, which I'm recording this on Thursday. So we're not going to know for sure, but it doesn't change my mind. I think the Panthers do win this game, but it's just going to be barely. Battlehawks versus Brahmas. This is the toughest game I've had to pick so far this season. Because I truly could see this game ending 30-10 either way. I really could. The fact is, neither of these two teams have impressed me at all. They just haven't. The Brahmas, you could make a very strong case, should be 0-2. It took a right tackle costing his team 2 touchdowns and one of the most fluky, it was incredible, but fluky touchdowns you'll ever see with a punter throwing to a center. And then you had a Showboats game where you just got this miraculous win in the fourth quarter, literally the last 2 minutes of the game. Now, the counterpoint to that, a game against the Showboats, you did get a lot of issues by penalizing or being penalized, a lot of undisciplined play. If they were to have not done that, they could have scored a lot of points early on. They wouldn't have had drives be stalled and all that. So there is that going for them. Now with the Battlehawks, it's that sense of how good is this team's defense actually. I know they were missing a key linebacker last week. Hopefully he'll be back this week for them. But at the end of the day, the Battlehawks defense has not impressed me at all. It just hasn't. Through 2 weeks, I know some people tried to act like this defense, got heavily improved. And I was like, yeah, it's better than it was last year, but it doesn't mean it's going to be elite. And so far, I have not seen that. The game against the Panthers did not give me any sort of hope. The fact is West Hills was able to do a lot of damage to that defense and then immediately didn't do damage to the Stallions defense. And then Luis Perez was able to dice up this defense. So we'll see. This is going to be a really tough one. This is that, this would be kind of like a title eliminator fight kind of thing. It's going to be like one of those, where it's, you have, if you think about like UFC wise, you have these two guys that are ranked, like 3 to 6, and whoever wins is probably going to get a title shot, and whoever loses is probably done for. It has that feeling. Now, it's not the same because we are still early in the season, and naturally, because the Renegades' rough start, they have to get this W this week or else they're basically doomed. But this is one of those where whoever wins this is going to be the clear-cut favorite in the XFL conference, and whoever loses is just going to fall a lot. These are the two, really, you would say, the most outgoing fan bases in spring football, despite the fact that neither fan base has actually accomplished anything, which you gotta love that, how they basically are less humble than teams like the Stallions or Renegades who have actually, won championships. But whoever wins this is going to have a right to be that way. What do I think? I'm going to be honest. I'm going kind of against my gut feeling, and I'm going with the Battlehawks. The reason is because my gut feeling with the Battlehawks the past 2 weeks has been wrong, so I'm like, you know what? While I do think the Brahmas are going to win, I'm just going to say the Battlehawks. I'm not joking. That's how I'm doing it. The fact is with the Battlehawks is I'm looking at it, and I'm trying to force myself to believe it, and it's kind of what it is. When I look at this and I think about it, through 2 weeks, they have the better running back. Through 2 weeks, I know Brahmas fans are not going to agree with this, but they have the better quarterback. Let me put it this way. Through 2 weeks, Chase Garbers, you could very well make the case has been the best quarterback, but objectively, AJ's been better or is better kind of deal. So they have the better quarterback. They have the better run game. Defense, you got to give the edge to the Brahmas. So it's a close one, but I'm going to go with the Battlehawks. I do think this is going to be an under. I don't see either of these teams really going all out and scoring 35. 30 is the most I'll see, and like I said, if that's going to happen, I think it's going to be just a blowout. I think it's going to be, like a Birmingham, like 42-2 type of game against the Showboats last year or something like that. I don't really see this game being that close. Let me rephrase it. I don't see this game being that high scoring. The fact is you have a Wade Phillips coach defense going against an offense that is going to be a really good matchup. But is Durant going to have the same game he had last week? Is Chase Garbers going to continue to play really well? I don't know. Because especially with the Brahmas, the reason I'm going to go with the Battlehawks mainly is they're missing Alex Millette. Alex Millette, the fact is that, a lot of people now are going to look at him and say, oh, he's that dude that had a touchdown reception. That's not what you got to remember him as. You got to remember him as being one of the best centers in spring football. He was an all-XFL player. So the fact that they are going to be missing him for this game is huge. That is a huge impact to their O-line. And this is where the Battlehawks defense can prove that they're actually decent. If they don't just obliterate Garbers and, get like 4 sacks, it's a failure. Okay, if an offense is missing its best offensive lineman, you should be able to do a lot of damage to Garbers. That's the main reason I'm going with the Battlehawks. That is the loss. Yes, destroying, the personality is a huge loss for the Brahmas, but at the end of the day, he hasn't even kicked a field goal yet, so it's like... But the fact is they still have a new kicker who you have to hope that he does good. I'm just going to go with the Battlehawks. I think that there's so many signs saying the Battlehawks win this game, which is why I think my gut, the Brahmas win, because it just, whenever it feels like everything's going well for the Battlehawks, it's like last year, oh, they're going to get to the playoffs, they have this huge fan base, boom, Dragons come, and they just get beat. But Even though my gut says the Brahmas, I'm going to go with my head here. This is picking my head over my heart. And I'm going to go with the Battlehawks. We'll see if this ends up being right. Like I said, this could very well be the other one. This is the closest matchup by far this week. I could see either team pull it off. And if the Brahmas win this, I'm not going to be shocked in the slightest. Like I said, that's my gut feeling. It's just when you lost your starting center and you lost a kicker, that's a huge deal. Look, you can only win so many games without kicking a field goal. It's just, you can only do so much. So, I'm going to give it the edge to the Battlehawks. And now finally, some of the overall records. Yes, this has been a long game picks video, but in terms of the overall records, yes, there's a new category, the P, which is push, because I've seen a lot of these games put, a single digit, either over, under, or spread. For those of you who don't know, pushes is essentially like if the over-under is 41, the end score is 41, it's a push. You get refunded, you lose your betting fees. It's kind of a loss, but you didn't really lose. So it's its own category. So like I said, last week we did really, really good. We went insanely well. The over-under was actually perfect, aside from, the game that was the push, which was the DC game, which that was literally half a point away from being correct in the spread and over-under. Instead, it was pushed both ways. Money line, we are at 500, 4-4. But the spread, we were 5-2, and the over-under 6-1. And I didn't even notice it, but last week I actually did predict the Battlehawks score of 27 points correctly. So we added another tick to the perfect team score prediction. And a couple of those games, mainly like the Stallions-Panthers, we were less than 5 points away from getting a perfect game score prediction. Maybe we'll see one of those sometime this year. But again, in terms of the perfect game betting predictions, again, we were a point away from the Panthers getting that perfect. We were a point away from the Defenders Roughnecks being perfect. But we didn't see that move at all. But again, so far we've been off to a really good start. The money lines, we got hope to improve. But we'll see. Overall, this has been ZomFox. Make sure to subscribe and hit the bell to be notified as soon as any videos. We have hit 700 subscribers, like I said a video or two ago. I want to thank you all for that again. We are doing a giveaway at 1,000 subscribers. So the faster we can get there, the better for you guys. And as always, have a great night.